In our last episode, we touched on making new friends and how I had had a friend date with someone.
Mhm.
So we wanted to kind of go deeper on that topic and talk about the importance of friendships, especially as we get older, and how to actually make friends when you're older, and the fears that are around it and the awkwardness, and just kind of really do a deep dive into all of it. But first, I wanted to kind of talk about the differences between you and I, Sarah,
Yeah.
because we've talked many times about how I'm a pretty like hermit person. Like I have a couple of friends, I don't do a lot of social activities, and you appear to be very, very different than that. You have a pretty wide network of friends, and socializing is very important to you. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say, yeah, I've always loved having a core group of friends and then also making new friends. So I've had a lot of the same friends for a long time, like since grade 7 or grade 9 or university. And I'm in my mid 40s. So this is like a, really long time. And then along the way, I've had so many different chapters, living in different places, becoming a mom, working in different places. And I've tended to sort of develop close friendships in those circles too. So yeah, I love having a lot of friends and
Yeah.
spending time with friends.
So you have a lot of experience in making new friends and then maintaining those relationships, even when your circumstances change and maybe you're not spending time with those people out of duty, or or the
Yeah.
situations, like you carry those friendships on.
I mean, I carry them on sometimes, and then sometimes they fizzle out or they kind of disappear because there's only so many hours in the day. So that's also something I think about, like letting go of friendships and how different seasons of our lives we might have some great friendships and then they might not last, and how that's also okay. So I certainly haven't kept all of the friendships, but I would say I, you know, I, I do have a lot of friends.
What is the importance for you for having these friends? Like what does it bring to your life that I think people, we talk about the importance of friendship and everybody understands it on a conceptual
Yeah.
level, but
Yeah.
then we don't bring it into actual practice to feel it ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's just having friends feels good. Having good friends feels good. And of course, there's so much research. We know this. Research backs up that when we have more friends, we have better or good friendship. Doesn't necessarily mean better, but when we have good friendship, we feel that we have better mental health, better emotional health, also better physical health. There's so many benefits that science shows us, but that's not why I do it. It's just because it feels good. I like it. I like sharing memories with people, sharing moments with people. I like talking about things. I like learning about other people. I find it fun doing activities with friends. So for me, that's why it's important.
Do you find that you're the organizer of the activities in your friend group? Like, do you take on that responsibility, or is it
Mm,
shared?
That's a great question. I think it depends. I think often we can find it fall into roles
Yeah.
in right in long standing relationships. So I think with some people, maybe I tend to initiate phone calls or plans, and with other friends less so. They take that on, they sort of take that leadership role on. So it
Okay.
depends.
Yeah, interesting. So you talked about the benefits that we get from
Mm-hmm.
having kind of a network of friends on the personal level
Mm-hmm.
of better mental health, better physical health, all of that. There's other benefits as well. We've talked before about like networking and finding jobs, and one of the best ways to
Mm-hmm.
find a job is through a personal referral. And while this sounds like a
So
kind of
true.
practical reason to have friends, it is a real benefit to having friends that they can introduce you to other people and bring you in for professional opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that sounds transactional, but it on a basic level, it's friends will help you
Yeah, exactly.
with different things, not just finding a job, but anything with advice,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
All kinds of
yeah.
help.
And to take that, like, not to be a downer, but to take that to the like nth degree, if your partner is your only close friend or is your entire support
Mm-hmm.
network, like
Mm-hmm.
at some point one of you is going to die. And if you
Right.
don't have a network of friends to support you through that, it can be really difficult.
Yeah.
So, building those friends now so that when you're 80, you've been friends for a couple
Mm-hmm.
decades and you have
Mm-hmm.
that built in. It seems like something like so far in the future, but I saw it with my mom. Her kids are really her only close friends. And so we had to be her support system, which I was happy to do, but it definitely would have been better for her if she'd had some close friends to be with her.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's a good perspective. And I certainly know of some couples where you hear of, one person sadly passing on, and then the story of, oh well, this other person didn't really have any friends because it was the one who passed on. They were the ones that
Yeah.
really sort of kept the social circle going and always made all the plans. Sometimes in a relationship that will happen. There'll
Mm-hmm.
be kind of one person that really brings the party, or like brings the friends, organizing things, and the other one less so. And so if that person disappears, then there goes sort of your source of connection and friendship.
Yeah, that is such a big issue, actually, more for men, because
Mm-hmm.
typically women are the ones
The
who
or
are
the
the
organizers
the
and the
social organizer.
conveners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I read some statistic that like 1 year post divorce is the most dangerous time for men for suicide
Mm.
because they lose their entire social network when they lose their wife through divorce. It's
Sad.
yeah, it's sad, but just to underscore that importance of having friends and maintaining these relationships.
Yeah. And we hear this, we know this. Loneliness is pervasive.
Yeah.
And I read one stat when I was getting ready for today's conversation. I read one stat that said for adults over 45 in the US, more than one third, so 35% of them, reported feeling lonely on a daily basis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's so that's so sad.
it is sad.
Yeah. And
It
we
is
think,
sad.
people think that the time that they spend on social media is replacing friendships. And while you can find groups that, help you identify with your interests and whatnot, I think that this push to all of our social time being at a distance has really come at a detriment to our mental health.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, it's a fine way to stay in touch, but
Yeah.
it's not a way to build a real relationship, a trusting relationship.
Yeah. It's easy, and the fact of the matter is that building real relationships is hard.
It is hard.
I mean, you have to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be confident in, sharing and communicating and just developing that connection. You have to
Yep.
be open. You have to
And
be
and
engaged.
and you have to use your time.
Yeah.
And in our capitalist society, we always think we don't have enough time,
Yeah.
right? We should be being productive,
Right.
right? Or kind of zoning out.
Right.
Whereas spend, even though it's so fulfilling, and often I'll make a plan, and then when the time comes, I don't really want to go. I'd rather, right? It's an effort. But I know, well, I'm gonna feel better after I have a coffee with my friend, or after we walk the dogs together, or whatever it is, go see a movie together, whatever it is, I'm going to feel happy that I had that connected time with them. Almost the way, how I would feel about exercise. Oh, I don't want to go. Well, I'm not going to regret it once I'm done. So I kind of have to push myself. It's the same thing with friendship.
I was just going to say that as you were saying that, it's all the same things that go through your head when you don't want to work out.
Yeah.
And these things that we know are good for us are the
Mm-hmm.
hardest things to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like a faulty wiring or something in our brains, like that these things that will have the most benefit are the hardest to get yourself to do.
Yeah, so true. And also, what you said about social media really fits in here, because now we have social media to fall back on, and our
Mhm.
smartphones to fall back on, and we're going to be getting dopamine hits. Whereas when we were younger, when we were teenagers, we didn't have that. So we
Yeah.
would always, I don't know about you, but every day after school, I was with my friends.
Oh yeah.
Weekends, all nonstop. And if we weren't together, we were speaking on the phone
Yeah.
like all night long, right? So because we didn't have another way to feel this kind of, you know, connection, quote, I'm putting that in quotation, the social, which is created by social media, which we know actually ultimately isn't that fulfilling and actually leads to a lot more problems typically. Yeah, so we were kind of forced into
Yeah.
spending time together in person. So it's so much easier now to back out.
Yeah. And because when we're younger, you're in school with people, so you're
Yeah.
having forced time
Yeah.
together. You're playing sports with them, you're in class with them, and then you go into work, and that's where a lot of people then make their friends
Mm-hmm.
um, after school. But then as we get older, or like for us, we're working for ourselves, we don't
Yeah.
have the in-office interaction. That forced time
Yeah.
together builds friendships.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you
So
don't
true.
have that like constant like time together, like I don't know if you've ever had this where you like meet someone and you had a great time with them, and then you're like, I never saw them again.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
Yeah.
like, because there's no like, I'm going to see you tomorrow because we're both going to be in the same place.
Yeah, and honestly, that's the only thing about that I miss about working in an organization is those friendships. And even like we would joke about having a work wife,
Yeah.
right? Which is like your best friend at work. You have a handful of people and you have lunch together and coffees and stuff. So indeed, working from home, um, that's one of the challenges. But you talked about how when people are younger, it's so much easier to make friends. And I read something interesting which said for kids, they only need one thing in common with another kid to be their friend.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, oh, we both play soccer, we're friends. We're
Yeah.
both in the choir, we're friends. We're both in grade 5, we're friends. And I see this with my kids,
Yeah.
especially when they were younger. Now they're teens, or one of them is a teen, so they become more discerning. But as a little kid, it's like they're at day camp for one day. Oh, I have 5 new friends. It's like so amazing, right? So free. And then as we get older, subconsciously we were like, no, I need more than one thing in common. I need like a number of things.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting.
But we don't ever give ourselves the opportunity to have all those things in common. Like, if you meet someone and you have one thing in common,
Mm-hmm.
go with that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
do that thing with that person and talk to them, and you're going to find more things that you have in common.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't have to meet them and be like 100% aligned with everything that has ever happened to
Of
make them a
course.
friend.
Yeah. And you don't even have to have more things in common because you'll maybe evolve new interests and learn things from this other person and vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so the hard part about doing that, about like meeting
Yes.
someone and then actually turning it into a friendship,
Yeah.
there's so many things. Like we said, the time factor is a huge
Mm-hmm.
one. But I think like we all understand that you will make time for the things that are important to you if you really want to. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you will. It's very easy to blame a lack of time for a lot of things, and obviously this is not counting like, yes, especially like parents, you have a lot of obligations that require your time, of course, but you still have a life, right? Like, you're still making time to have friends and to
Mm-hmm.
do activities that you want to do. So let's set time aside, because I think that people can find an hour in a week
Yeah.
to make friends, right? But I think there's so many like mental blocks or
Mm-hmm.
fears that stop us from reaching out to people and making connections. Like, um, before I went to walk with my new friend the other day, I had a lot of fears about like, what are we going to talk about?
Uh-huh.
Am I going to be weird? Am I going to say something that
Yeah.
turns them off? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what happens if we go and they have a good time and I don't, and then they want to be my friend and I don't want to be their friend anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so many things that your brain conjures up that are like easy excuses to
Mm-hmm.
not pursue friendship.
It's all the things that might go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the things that actually helps me the most with that is realizing that everybody feels that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, your brain is not any weirder than their brain. They're going through the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
they're having the same fears. yeah, maybe they're not exactly the same. Like maybe some people have no concerns about whether the conversation will flow or whatever, but like they're having their own fears. They're having their own hangups. So like you just kind of have to
Yeah.
be like, yep, I'm human. I'm a weirdo. That's just life. And
Yeah.
I
And
want to make friends.
yeah, and also I think part of it is like, well, what's the problem if you go and you're like, oh, I actually am not really that jazzed about building a relationship, a friendship with this person, then you had a walk
Yeah.
and that's it.
Right.
Or if then they're like, nah, I'm not going to go out with her again. It's like, it's not really a big risk. I
Yeah.
mean, you might feel, rejected or uncomfortable for 5 minutes after. But when you think about it, it's like, okay, moving on.
Yeah. I think we're at a level of like self-acceptance that it doesn't feel like a big deal, but I think for
Mm-hmm.
some people that could like that
Okay.
rejection could be a
That's
big
true.
deal. So I don't want to
That's
gloss
true.
over that.
That's true.
um,
That's true. Mm-hmm.
so the fear of rejection I think could
Mm-hmm.
be pretty big, but I think that's an opportunity for people to build some confidence and some strength and to be
Okay.
like, okay, like
Okay.
if
If the rejection is painful, then I think you could view it as working that muscle, like building
yeah,
that muscle up, and a reminder to keep trying.
yeah,
Keep trying and getting to know more people. And if it's not the right fit, then it's just not the right fit. And there's so many other people out there who will want to be your friend.
yes,
And there's so many other people who also crave, like maybe feel lonely and they want to have that. I had this one professor at university in my undergrad, and she taught me world religions. And I remember she was, you know, exasperated about, I don't know, something in the class. And she said, oh, all of you, all of you young people, like you're so worried about falling in love and being in a relationship. And like, you think that you need to be perfect. And you think you need to, before anybody is going to love you. And you're wrong.
yeah,
Look around in the street, look around in the bus, look at everybody who found somebody to love. They don't act a certain way. They don't look a certain way. They don't talk a certain way. Everybody is just themselves, and eventually they can find people to match them.
yeah,
And it's this, I found it very, revelatory, because at that age, I think I was more stuck in this idea of like, oh, I'm going to want to dress this way, look this way, conform in this way to find a partner, to find a great boyfriend. And then it made me realize, well, of course, people, all kinds of people find love, and why wouldn't I? And it's the same with friendships, right? So I think a lot of it is just knowing, be your, like, it sounds so easy, just be yourself, but actually be yourself, because
yeah.
other people are themselves. They're also not perfect. They're also not without quirks and imperfections, right? And they might really want to be your friend.
Okay, so um, let's talk about like actually meeting people, making
Mm,
friends. Like, how do we do that?
yeah.
It just gets harder as we get older.
Mhm.
Like we talked about, the not having the forced time, um, and being stuck on our phones, sitting on our couch all
Mhm.
the time. Like, the fact of the matter is that you actually have to go out and
Mhm.
meet people. Like,
Mhm.
there's no way around that. You have to interact in the real world.
Yeah. So how do you do it? Like, if you think about some of the more recent friends
Yeah.
that you've made, how have you done that?
So it's all been through like other interactions, like
Mhm.
met somebody at an event or through a work thing, or like my friend that I went on the walk with. She was my myofascial release therapist. So we would talk while she was working on me for an hour every time. So we got to know each other
Mhm.
through that, and then just so it's kind of like um, taking interactions that maybe weren't in a friend situation and then transitioning them to friends. But I've made friends through other people introducing me, like friends introducing me to
Yeah.
friends. Um, how about you?
Yeah. So when I had kids, I met a lot of people through my kids,
Hmm.
because it's the same thing you're talking about, that suddenly I was forced to be in these circumstances with these other parents, whether that's, swimming lessons or sports or whatever, after school things. So that was a way to meet a lot of people. And a couple of those friendships have lasted, but I'll say a whole lot of them haven't.
Yeah.
Um,
They're kind of circumstantial, like
yeah. And I don't want to diminish, that
the value. Yeah.
there's genuine value. And then it's like, oh, well, we don't still talk.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So that's something, through, I would say, same as you, sometimes through work events. So, specifically related to, there have been a few kind of more colleague type people who have become friends, in some of the, circles more related to like women in business, women in technology, personal branding, specifically for women. So some of those business owners or professionals, I might have some sort of like synergy in terms of our values,
Mm-hmm.
which I can see maybe even, you're with your physical therapist, like you also have, I know something that's really important to you is like health and
Mm-hmm.
well-being. So that makes sense that you'd have a
Yeah.
lot to talk about, right?
Yep.
So I think being active in like finding my own place professionally in different, working for different types of organizations, and then aligning myself with the kind of, some of the people I meet there, has been it. But it's what you're saying. I then have to, send a LinkedIn message and say, oh, do you want to have a coffee sometime? Do you want to Zoom chat sometime?
Yeah.
And it is going out of my shell a little bit. It's like taking those initial few meetings and then building on it.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a work specific event. Like you could
Yeah.
volunteer with an organization and get to know people through that.
Yeah.
I've even seen, I don't know, I assume every town has this, but we have like a local Facebook group where everyone who lives
Yeah.
here joins and talk about like whatever the latest crime down the street is or whatever. But
Yeah. We have
I've seen
that.
people post in there that are like, hey, I'm interested in doing this. Is there anyone else who is interested
Yeah.
and wants to meet up? There's a group of women that get together once a month and have dinner. Just like it's an open invite. Like they say, here's where we're going to be. Show up if you want to come. Like,
It's
find
nice.
finding people locally who have your same interests. You can do it in myriad ways. You just actually have to do it.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, and that reminds me, yeah, there are some local groups there's one sort of women's meetup group that I've been at, and I wouldn't say the people there are my friends yet, but one or two of them might become my friends.
Yeah.
But I still have that in person connection, and I'm able to talk about things that feel interesting to me.
Yeah.
So that's meaningful in that way. So I agree with you. Finding local things is good because then you're showing up in your body and talking to other people in their body in real life about something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the point that you just made was that you have to like make that move
Yes.
to invite them to do something, and that's probably the hardest part, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you meet them and you have a great time, and then you go home and you're like, gosh, I really want to hang out with that person again, and then you never do because it's hard. It's
It's hard.
so
Yeah.
awkward to reach out and be like, hey, do you want to be my friend?
Yeah. But, but, but it doesn't, like, have you received phone calls from some, like, have you been on the receiving end when you've gotten those calls before?
hmm. I'm sure that I have, maybe not in a while, but
Yeah.
I would say probably from my best friend, she was the aggressor. She reached out
Mm.
to me and wanted to get together. But it's only a good feeling if someone
Yes.
wants to be your friend,
And I mean, now she's your best friend.
right?
So just imagine if she was like, "Oh no, Pam won't want to, or I feel too nervous."
Yeah,
Right? Like it's so
yeah,
amazing, and now you have this great friendship. So
yeah. So to like help get over some of that awkwardness, some of the things that you can do are like to make it a low stakes ask. Just coffee.
yeah,
It doesn't have to be a whole thing. It can be a group get together. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you guys have friends in common, try and organize something so that you're getting together again, but it's not one on one if that feels awkward.
Yeah, I think I love what you're saying about coffee. I think also a walk is a great idea
Yeah.
because a lot of research has shown that, like, when we're walking with people, it actually really opens our communication channel and we can feel more open and more comfortable than when we're sitting down facing each
Yes.
other with a cup of coffee. So I, so I think going for a walk is a great idea. And I also think even in this way, technology can be helpful if you want to send a couple of texts before with like, oh, hey, I read this funny article, or, I just read this book, or you know what I mean? Just making contact about something that maybe you have a shared interest about, and
Yeah.
sharing a resource, sharing an idea, checking in with them, just calling to say hi and like, how's everything going? Say something's happening in the news or in the weather or in your community. Just say, oh, how are you doing with all of this? I've been thinking of you. You crossed my mind today. Can be a way to kind of create some warmth and connection before you make the ask.
Yeah. I'm cringing inside with all of those, like, uh, the vulnerability of saying to someone that you're not even friends with, I was thinking about you.
Yeah. Or have
Like,
you Yeah, that sounds a little intense. Maybe you
oh no,
maybe you crossed my mind. Not like all
I
day and
think
all
it's
night.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
It's just all of this stuff that we're talking about is so sensitive and it makes
Mhm.
you feel like an awkward teenager,
Mm.
right? Even like we think like I'm 45, I'm above all this, and then as
Mhm.
soon as you go to
Mhm.
make a friend, you are 12 years old again
12 years
and you've
old.
got a zit on the end of your nose and you think
Yeah.
everyone thinks you're a freak. You know? So like I just want to like keep reiterating that this it is hard. It's
Mhm.
going to feel weird. It's going to bring up all kinds of feelings for you and like you just kind of have to do it anyway.
Mhm.
And it gets easier.
It really does get easier. I think, for example, I don't find it as awkward.
Okay.
Right. I definitely could still feel vulnerable. I did recently reach out to somebody new and I felt shy. I felt like a little nervous to do it. And I don't know if shy is the right word, but I felt a little nervous. So I definitely understand. And I could imagine myself saying, oh, hey, it was, great chatting with you. I was thinking we could go for a walk sometime. I'd love to get to know you more. I
Yeah.
think I could say that without feeling too um, overwhelmed
Yeah.
with it. But I think that I maybe have quite like a good amount of practice. I don't want to
Yeah.
toot my own horn too much, but I think I have a pretty good amount of practice.
Yeah.
So, but I say that just to say that, to your point, I think it gets easier,
Yeah. It definitely does.
right? And I think part of it, so what I wanted to talk about here is that the best friendships and relationships let you be more of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's when we're like, why is friendship important? It's like, because you can be you and be seen and be accepted,
Yeah.
right? And you can see someone else and accept them. So I think that, like, a big thing that feels important to me to emphasize is that you want to be your honest self. Like, you want to
Yeah.
show up as you, and that means you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get your words right. You don't have to have all your life figured out. You don't have to be, have no problems, no skin problems, no money problems. No, like just be a normal human person,
Yeah.
and find someone. If there's someone that you're like around them, like, check in with yourself, be like, oh wow, I feel interested in them, I feel good when I'm around them, I feel like I want to know more about them or be in their presence. It's like a felt thing.
Yeah.
Then say to them like, oh, it would be cool to spend a little time together.
Yeah. And you can be honest, like you're saying, be yourself, but like you can be like, hey, this feels a little awkward, but would you like
Mhm.
to get together for coffee? Like you can let them know that you're feeling weird about it.
Mhm.
And that kind of takes some of the edge off and just like acknowledges that this is hard and weird and I'm weird and you're weird. And,
Yeah.
this is all new.
Yeah. And I also think that I believe if you're coming from a place where you feel like, oh, I am being myself and I felt like myself when I was with them,
Yeah.
then they are most likely going to think, great, thank you for texting me. I would love to go on a walk with you.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not just coming up with some, strategy of why you want to, you know what I mean, connect with this person. Like, it's genuinely you felt good and you were being you,
Yeah.
then they're most likely going to reciprocate.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I think going back to what you were saying before about, well, where do we find these people? It's like, think about, well, what makes you feel good and alive right now?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like doing a values assessment for yourself right now in terms of who you are. If you're in your 40s or 30s or 50, whatever, right now in your life, like, what's happening that's interesting for you? What goals feel important to you? What do you like talking about?
Yeah.
Right? What are your interests right now? What are the things going on in the world that you care about? And do those things and, like, find places to do those things and talk about them and kind of be in them. And then when you look around, you'll be like, oh, these people also are in the same space as me.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a lot of people may say like, oh, I want to go do this thing, but I need a friend to do this thing with. And that's
Okay.
backwards. You need to go do the thing
And then,
and you'll
yeah.
meet like, let's say you are into golf, but you don't have a
Hmm.
golf partner. Like,
Hmm.
there are groups of people that go and
Hmm.
golf and they will fill you in their group with you
Yeah.
to make it a full group. Or you can, go to a book club that
Hmm.
you don't know anyone else there. Like, go do these activities
Hmm.
that you're into and you will
Yeah.
meet people that are also into them. You
Yeah.
can't wait to meet the people that are into the thing that you're into and then
I
go do it.
I think that's such a good point, because I think ultimately, why do we want friendship? We want to feel that we belong.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can find those spaces where you will find and help create those spaces where you will belong. But the first step is to know, well, what does interest you and
Yeah.
how do you want to spend your time and what kinds of things do you want to talk about? And then you can find openings there. And then those people will want you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've made the first move. We've set up a friend date. And then the hard part is actually showing up there and having good conversation and
Hmm.
feeling like, you connect um, on that time that you're spending together. And I think some of the mistakes that people make are um, going to do things together where there's not an opportunity for interaction. Like, if you go to like a comedy show or you go to a movie together,
Mm.
you're not interacting. You're sitting next to each other while
Right.
something is happening.
Right.
So I would advise people, like you said, taking a walk, I think, is the best, hands down, like best
Hmm.
way, because you're
Hmm.
not staring at each other. It's okay if there's some silence because you're still walking and enjoying nature, and that's fine. Um, and I think preparing for conversation
Mm.
is a big thing. I was listening to a podcast this morning with an interview by an author named Allison Woods Brooks. Her book is called Talk: The Science of Conversations and the Art of Being Ourselves.
Mm.
And she was talking about how when you go on a date or you go out with a new friend, you put a bunch of effort into your outfit and your hair and your makeup and the activity that you're going to do and all this stuff. And then you just show up there with no plan about what you're going to talk about. Like,
Mm.
we just assume that conversation is going to flow.
Mm.
And it does with friends that you've had for a long time. But when there's
Yeah.
someone new, it takes some more effort and you have to have some like planning in
Mm.
to go into it. So, um, I would come prepared with a couple of questions that you want to ask them, things you want to learn about
Yeah.
them,
So
stories of
good.
your own, like whatever that is. Like, don't rely on yourself in the moment to be
Yeah.
brilliant and come up with conversation. Maybe you don't need what you planned,
Yeah.
but like having it available will be really helpful.
I love that. And I love that thinking about how you might want to engage them and the kinds of questions you wanted to ask them. I think that's a great idea. And something that just came up for me is you said, like, with old friends, you might not need that. But I think with old friends as well, having some questions in mind is actually a good thing, because in some friendships, we can fall into a rut of talking about the same things all the time,
Yeah.
assuming that we know everything about each other already.
Yeah.
So, in fact, just this past weekend, I was at a friend of mine. She left the city and moved. She has a beautiful house in the country, and 7 of us, there were 7 women there for the weekend. We had a great time. And I brought conversation cards,
Yeah.
which actually I had used, I sometimes use at work events as like icebreakers. So we did them during dinner, and I wanted to make it super low stress. So I'm like, pick a card. If you hate it, just pick another card. And keep flipping through till you find one you like. Read the question out loud, and then anyone who wants to answer can answer. So I liked that, because the way I set it up, because it wasn't about making this a pressureful,
Yeah.
stressful situation, but it was an opportunity where people felt safe. Anyone who wanted to share, and then we were not forced to, but we were invited to talk about things that we really wouldn't have. Like, some of the questions were, what was the worst job you've ever had? So there were some hilarious conversations, you can imagine, that came up about that, and things that we had forgotten about, even though we've known each
Yeah.
other for so long. And, what was your grandmother's signature dish?
Mm.
If you could live in any era, which era would you choose and why? So these were just really fun ways to get everyone talking and laughing, and certainly brought a different type of conversation than we would have had. We certainly would have been able to fill this. It wouldn't have been silent, but I think there was sort of a different type of conversation, and everyone really appreciated it. At first, I think a few people laughed when I pulled it out, because it's like so me that I would like bring that. But in the end, I think everyone really liked it. We had a good laugh, and
Yeah.
it was something different. So I think even with old friends, even with family, actually, we've done those types of cards at family events with grandparents. Like, my parents
Yeah.
are my husband's parents, and that's been very fun. Like, the grandparents have loved it, because it allows everyone, different generations, different ages, like, to hear my kids come up with their answers is really funny. um and yeah, so anyways, all that to say, our friendships, we want to think about what we want to contribute and what we want to talk about, not in a controlling way, but in a thoughtful way, and we can do that with
Yes.
new friends and old friends.
Yeah. I agree. I use conversation cards with CK. We've been
Do
together
you?
for 16 years, and I will take one, like, because we do a couple walks a day. So I will take a card and ask him a question, and he'll give me his answer, and then I give mine, and it always sparks really great conversation. So you're
Love
totally
that.
right that all friendships need help with conversation and with maintaining that connection and learning new things about each other. There's always an opportunity for that.
It's so true, because if you were on your first date with CK, it would be like, oh my gosh, tell me everything about your childhood. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what, like, really wanting to get to know the person. Then you've
Yeah.
been with them 15, 16 years. It's just, you think, not you think, but one tends
Yeah.
to think they know everything about the partner. So it's great to have those prompts.
Yeah. And we change, right?
Yes. Yeah, we change, and we'll give a different answer. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, yesterday I thought this, I would think this is the place I'd want to visit, but today I think this is the place I want to visit.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, Another thing that I do, because I love lists, is I have like notes on my phone for each of the people that I talk to regularly. And whenever I think of something that I want to tell them about, I note it in there. Like, I'm not a big texter. I hate having a meaningful conversation over text. I would rather save a month's worth of conversation and see
Mhm.
you in person
Mhm.
and do it all together. Like, don't text me a meaningful conversation.
Mhm.
So I keep a list of like everything that pops in my head that I want to tell this person, or a story that happened, or like whatever, so that then
Mhm.
when I do see them, yeah, I pull out my phone and I look at a list, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I want to, remember all the things that I want to talk to you about. But you can do that with friends old and new. Like, if you're going to get together with a new person and you're worried about things that you're going to talk about, for the time leading up to it, every time you think about something that would be interesting to know about them or that you want to tell them, jot down a note.
Mm-hmm. I love it. That's great. Were there any other good tips that came from that podcast you listened to?
I had to turn it off so that we could
Mm.
record. So I don't know, but it's Armchair Expert.
Okay.
So yeah, it's that thing that she was talking about conversation. She calls it the myth of naturalness, meaning
Mm.
that like we think that because we talk all day long and we've been doing it our entire lives that we're good at it, but
Mm.
we're not. We just do it. That doesn't mean that we're expert communicators or that we're great at conversation. Like we actually do need to put some work into it. And that's not contrived. That's not fake to
Yeah.
put effort into conversation. It's necessary. We put effort into everything else. Why wouldn't we put it into the most meaningful thing that we do with other humans?
I love that. Great. And I can see that as a great resource for folks who might be, gearing up to set up some friend dates.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Good idea.
Okay. So after you have had a friend date, you got to follow through. You got to follow up. You got to make the next one because
The
so
next move.
often it fizzles out, right? You have a great time and then you both get busy and you never see each other again.
Mm-hmm.
So if this is something that's important to you, you have to make it a priority to continue the connection. Back to that forced time together thing that we benefit from when we're younger. We don't have that anymore. So you have to force the time
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, I think that's why for folks who, are fortunate to land on a club or a group, that's so beneficial because you'll have that cyclical kind of event coming up. So that's a really big, I'm not really part of a lot of clubs. I've wanted to be part of a book club for so long and it just never really manifests for me. I guess I could create one, but anyways, all that to say, I'm not really part of a lot of clubs, but I love the idea of that because
Yeah.
then I'd be like, oh, okay, great. I'll see you next week or next
Yes.
week, or I'll see you next month, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I think that if you're really longing for more friendships, that's a really great way to do it.
Definitely.
Yeah. And whether that's, exercise class, gardening club, whatever it is, if you're guaranteed those meetups, what a win.
Yeah. One of your notes is focusing on quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
And I I think like what comes up for me when I see that is absolutely we want quality, but I think you have to like go for quantity and then narrow it down to quality. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that what I see in certainly my clients who tend to be in like their 30s or 40s or above, naturally are more discerning about their relationships, and that's because we do have more demands on our time, and so we tend to be looking for good relationships where we can be ourselves, where we can have more than surface level conversations,
Yeah.
and like no drama, like
Yes.
for no, who has time for that? So just genuine connection, no drama, genuine support. So that's definitely a big trend. So when I think about what people are looking for at this age, I think about quality over quantity. I think flexibility because we are busy, and so some of my closest friends, we don't talk every day, we don't talk every week, we don't talk every month.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be years, and then how can you pick back up and have that connection, and you can in certain relationships. And so I think that sort of flexibility and understanding is so important and just so appreciated.
Yeah. So important. And yeah, you hear so many people are like, well, I reached out twice and they didn't have time to get together. So I'm done with them. Like we are really busy
Yeah.
and everybody's got a lot going on. And if you're in that situation, if you've reached out a couple times and they haven't been able to make plans with you,
Yeah.
you can just ask like, hey,
Yeah.
do you want me to keep following up?
Yeah.
Do you want me to keep trying? Or is this over?
Yeah.
Like, are we not going to get together?
No, I agree with you. And I also think on the flip side, if you've been the one to not get back to people, because that happens to
Yeah.
me, And then it's almost like it's a perfectionist, like a perfectionist, holding yourself to this perfectionist friendship kind of standard. Like, I better not ever screw up. I better not ever hurt them. I better not, ever take 3 months to get back to their text. I better not forget them if they're going through a hard time. I better not, I better make enough of an effort, and like holding ourselves to all these high standards. And I try to be a great friend, and I've screwed up so many times in those ways, right? Just because of life is busy and I have a lot of things on my mind and in my heart. So I think, giving myself grace for that, forgiving myself. And then sometimes I'll reach out to someone and be like, oh my gosh, like you called me and it was 6 months ago and this was going on in your life. And I felt so bad that I didn't get back to you. And they're like, that's fine. Like, I'm so glad to hear from you right now.
Yeah.
And I've done the same to other friends too. I'm like, oh my gosh, don't worry. Yeah. So I think that kind of, this is getting back to this idea of, flexibility and understanding. Like, guilt and perfectionism can trigger such a cycle. And like, it's just not useful. We know this. It's not useful for our work, and it's certainly not useful for our friendships. So if you're lucky enough to have like a person, you love them, you like them, you've got a good friendship, and time goes on, or they weren't there for you in a certain moment, but they want to be there. Like, I'll speak for myself. They weren't there for me in a certain moment, but they want to be there for me now. If I can forgive that, I really try to, because I'm sure I've made the same mistake as well. And I want to be forgiven for that too, because I just feel like life is too short. So if we have those great friendships, where can we have more flexibility and understanding? I'm not saying we should be walked on. It's not about that, but of course, do you know what I mean? Like, I think that the idea of perfectionism in friendship is like a good one to evaluate, and just think we're all really doing our best with really busy lives and a lot of our own goals and messes to deal with. And so where can we be easy with each other in service of having lots of friends or good friends?
Yeah. I was just reading the other day that people not responding to texts is an anxiety symptom.
Yeah.
That like you get a text and then you're like, I have to craft a response and say the right thing. And then you get overwhelmed. And then you're like, okay, I'll do it later. And then you close it.
I get that.
And then it's gone.
Yeah.
You never get back to the person.
And then I've done that. And then it's like, oh my gosh, it's been 2 weeks. How can I face it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another time where like, just be honest. Just be like, hey, I got your text. I got overwhelmed. Here's what I should have.
Or like, oh my gosh, this slipped through the cracks, but I was so happy to hear from you.
Yeah.
Here's my answer.
Yeah.
And probably the person will think, great. Hi.
Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, because they've done it too.
Yes. Yeah. I think people generally, if you're in a healthy friendship, people are generally more understanding than we than we fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have friends that we would love to see more often, but we end up seeing each other like once a year. And we end up trying to get together during the holidays, because that's when everybody has more time off from work and everything. And last year we had plans to get together. They were going to come over to our house for a couple days, and like a day and a half before they were supposed to come, he texted me and he was like, please do not hate me. Like, would you hate me forever if we cancel and reschedule? And I was like, of course not. Like, you have stuff. I get it. Like, he was totally overwhelmed with work. And I was like, it's fine. Like, don't make things bigger than they need to be, especially like in a good relationship.
Yeah. Because when you think about it, that's what friends are for.
Yeah.
It's like to understand.
Right. Yeah. What a horrible person would I be if I was like, no, I hate you forever because you can't come to my house.
But I understand his fear as well.
Yeah, of course.
Because sometimes people do react that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aw.
Okay, so let's talk about the sunsetting of friendships, whether it is intentional or accidental, or just life.
Yeah, whether you're setting the sun on a friendship or someone is setting the sun on you.
Yeah, exactly.
It can happen in different ways.
It can. Like you were talking about, you made friends when your kids were younger because of activities or, meeting them at school or parent events or whatever. And then your kids get older, you're not around those people anymore. So your lives just kind of go in separate ways. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of times people think that that's a failure or think about it negatively or like, oh, like that it wasn't meaningful. But I think that friendships, just like God, every time we talk now, I feel like we're talking about cycles and
Mm-hmm.
seasons, but like relationships go through cycles and seasons, and people come into your life and they go out, and that's just how life is. There's
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that the friendship wasn't valuable or important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny. You just reminded me. I mean, it's such a cliche, but I don't know. What do you think of this expression that friends come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime?
Yeah, I mean it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's funny because it's a cycle. And at the same time, that's something that I feel pain about some friendships that have
Mm.
ended. So maybe that's, some vulnerability there, but even though I know logically I don't have space and time for every person who's been in my life as a friend. I mean, it just wouldn't make sense, right?
Yeah,
But when I think back, oh wow, this I was so close with this person and now they're not in my life anymore. I can feel sad about that.
of course.
One part of me can feel sad about that for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, I get like when you were talking about the friends that you have that you've had some since you were in school. I have a couple of people that I went to high school with that I could call, if I wanted to, but we don't. We never reach out. If we happen to be in the same town at the same time, we'll get together, but we're not close like that. I still think of them very fondly and I feel like they're my close friends, but we haven't spoken in years. So I get jealousy a little bit when I hear that. Like I wish that I had
Mm-hmm.
that, 30-year friendship and that history. So I get that feeling of like, oh, that person was in my life and now they're not anymore. I also think that sometimes we can idealize past friendships. Like I have people that I was
Mm-hmm.
friends with when I worked in an office job before, and it was like, God, we had so much fun together, and
Yeah.
we always were laughing and doing crazy things and whatever. And it's like that probably doesn't fit in my life now. Like they were the circumstantial friends, and I could be sad about not being close with them anymore, but I also just appreciate what they were.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for the kinds of friendships you wanted to have then.
Yeah, exactly.